All right, so in this video, we are covering multiplying and dividing integers. So I have a few practice problems here set up for you guys already, but what an integer is, if you didn't catch the adding and subtracting integers video from earlier, you can look down in the description box and I'll have the link to that. But this video, we're gonna go over first what an integer is and then go into the rules of multiplying and dividing integers. So an integer is just any positive or negative whole number, including zero. So basically, if you're looking at a number line, starting with zero, any whole number on the right side of zero are positive, and then to the left of zero, you have your negative. But integers are just any of these whole numbers going to infinity in the negative direction and infinity in the positive direction. So we said in the last video that fractions are not integers. Okay. All right, sorry about that. I'm in a breakout room right now recording. Hopefully that message didn't pop up on the screen, but all right, so we said in the last video that what was not an integer was a fraction. Decimals are not integers. Square roots are not integers. So yeah, integers, they are solely whole numbers. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and erase this and we will get to our practice problem. So I have here, we have a positive and, we have a positive and a positive, or a positive times a positive. And then we have a negative times a positive. We have a positive times a negative, and we have a negative times a negative. Okay, so here are the rules. We know that 3 times 5, just from earlier in our elementary years, 3 times 5 is 15. It's a positive number, so we can go ahead and say that a positive times a positive is going to get us a positive. So let me just write that here under the rules. Okay, and over here we have a negative 3 times a positive 5. Okay, so what that looks like is negative 3 5 times. Okay, so that's negative 3, negative 3, negative 3, negative 3, and negative 3. Okay, so negative 3 5 times. Well, actually, I forgot to put the plus signs in there, but we should have negative 3. Let me actually go back and do that because that makes a huge difference. Sorry about that. So negative 3 once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and 5. Oops. 5 times. So when you are, and this takes us back to the last lesson, when you have a negative number and you're adding a negative number, so you're adding a negative to an already negative, your answer is going to be negative, right? And then you just add the numbers together. So negative 3 plus a negative 3 is going to get me negative 6. And if I keep adding negative numbers, negative numbers, negative numbers, my answer is still going to be negative. So that's the reason why. Okay, and now the rule. Okay, so again, the reason why our answer is going to be negative. 3 times 5 is 15, so I can just multiply the digits. And then my answer is going to be negative because, again, I just showed you the addition sentence. Okay, same thing. Oh, sorry, I forgot to put the rule over here. So the answer to this rule, a negative times a positive, is going to get me a negative. So negative, let's do these instead. So a negative times a positive is going to get me a negative. Okay, so now here we have a positive times a negative. Okay, positive 3 times negative 5. So all this is saying I can do negative 5 3 times. So negative 5 plus negative 5 plus negative 5. Okay, and again, when you remember from the last video, we also said that when two operations are together, a positive and a negative make a negative. So this sentence can be written as negative 5 minus 5. And when we subtract from a negative number already, okay, your answer is going to be more negative, right? And more negative means that we're adding these digits together. So negative 5 minus negative 5 is going to get us negative 10. And the more we subtract, right, if we bring this number down, the more we subtract, the more negative it's going to be. So 10 and 5 make 15. Okay, if I were to subtract again, it's just going to get me more negative, right? So let's go ahead and erase this. So I know that my solution, when I have a positive times a negative, it's going to get me a negative solution. So a positive times a negative is just going to get me a negative, okay? So the last rule, and I can write my answer here, we have negative 15. The last rule, I have a negative times a negative. Now the same with this rule up here, okay? You see how we have two positive numbers and they're the same symbol, positive and positive is the same operation. So the rule here is anytime you have the same operation, so either two negatives or two positives, it's going to get you a positive outcome or solution. So our answer will be, again, you're multiplying just the digits. 3 times 5 is going to get us 15. So again, two operations that are the same. And this only goes, these are the rules for multiplying and dividing, okay? These are not the rules for addition and subtraction. Addition and subtraction are completely different rules, and you need to go back and watch that video if you are unsure of those rules. But make sure that you have these rules down and you know, like you can decipher that these are only for multiplication and division problems. So let me go ahead and give us some practice problems. Let's try one of each rule. So if I have, let's say if I have 7 times 3 here, these are two positive numbers. Okay, so two positive numbers, the same operations is going to get me a positive, right? So 7 times 3 is 21. Again, and another thing that is really going to help is if you know your multiplication facts from 0 to 12. You really need to be fluent in those facts for this to come natural to you. So this was a positive times a positive. So let's try the second rule. I have a negative and a positive. So let's see if I have negative 12 times 7. And a negative and a positive I know is going to get me a negative. And so I just have to multiply those digits. So 12 times 7 is going to get me 84. Okay. So now let's do this third rule. So I have a positive times a negative. If I had a positive 8 times a negative 6, I know a positive and a negative is going to get me a negative. So that's going to be 48. And the last rule, I have two negatives. Okay, so negative and a negative, they're both the same operations. So it's going to get me a positive. And that is going to be 4 times 8 is 32. Okay. So please practice with those rules. The more you practice with them and the more you use it, of course, the better and the more natural these are going to become for you. So go ahead and practice those. If you need a refresher on the addition and subtraction with integers, please watch the last video. Again, you can find the links below, and I will see you in the next one.